Hello everyone, first news update for 9th of April. Now it's 9:30 in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this update informative and interesting. And if so, please, dear friends, don't forget to click that like button and leave some commentary that might help to deal with their extremely aggressive algorithm that is constantly tries to crush my videos. And yesterday's update was clearly crushed on YouTube big time. So if you can, please click that like button and leave some commentary. And I will also remind you that quite often I have extra content on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And yesterday, for example, not just news updates, but some other extra videos. And yesterday I published a fourth episode of random stuff. Last 3 days it's snowing in Moscow, and I wanted to depict this weather in a video, and I did it yesterday, and I share some news also simultaneously, because after all it's a random stuff program about anything really. So yes, and if you like my work, if you want to support, I hope you will consider to join our communities on Patreon or their Boosty. That will definitely make my day. And so yes, let's go through some news now. Let's go through some news. And first of all, this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on latest update of Defense Ministry of the Russian Federation, that during the night, early hours of this morning, 158 drones were intercepted by air defense systems on duty. Drones that were launched by Kiev regime with assistance of NATO member states. I'll give you some specifics. 67 drones were intercepted over the Krasnodar region. This area was targeted most heavily. 29 drones in the Rostov region, 50 drones over the North Ossetia, Alania, Autonomous Republic in the Northern Caucasus region of Russia, 11 drones in the Voronezh region, 10 drones in the Kursk region, 5 drones in the Belgorod region, 3 drones over the Crimea, 2 drones in the Penza region, and 1 drone each in Stavropol and Oryol, and Saratov regions. 7 drones were shot down over the waters of the Azov Sea and 6 over the Black Sea. So large scale, one of the largest scale of attempts to strike deep into Russian territory by Kiev regime and its NATO backers this year. And if during the day we will receive any updates on this strike, of course I will share additional information on my Telegram channel and Twitter X page, possibly in the next update on my Patreon, if there will be significant developments and necessity to make that second update. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed information about progress of the Russian armed forces in Kursk region, and the Guevo settlement was liberated. I reported about Russian progress in the Guevo area, in that borderline strip, and yesterday Defense Ministry actually confirmed that Guevo is completely under Russian control. I guess some clearing operation is still underway in forestry around the settlement, but the village itself is in Russian control. And also reports are coming in that Russian forward units of the Russian armed forces already reached Karnal settlement, and operations are taking place in this area to liberate this village. And also Russian troops are conducting a clearing operation in Oleshnya settlement, and I guess it is highly likely that today we will receive information that Oleshnya settlement, right next to border with the Sumy region, was also liberated. And the last settlement that will be liberated from this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky in Kursk, this borderline strip, will be Karnal, I guess, most likely before end of this week. And at the same time, dear friends, Russian armed forces continuing their offensive operations to create a buffer zone in the Sumy region. And after liberating Basovka from terrorists of the Kiev regime and their NATO, now Russian troops are conducting operations in Loknya settlement and closing into Yunakovka, biggest basically village in this area, town, one may argue. So significant progress in this direction also. And I guess before end of this week, Loknya settlement in the Sumy region will be also completely liberated by Russian forces. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that during the clashes in this borderline strip area of the Kursk region, Kiev regime's forces lost more than 290 military personnel. Earlier, I reported about information that is coming from resistance, pro-Russian resistance in Kiev-controlled territory, that Zelensky and his criminal associates are not allowing troops that are trapped basically in these areas of Guevo, Loknya, Garnal, Aleshnya to withdraw. Even heavily wounded military personnel have not been withdrawn, or the units that are that completely lost supply and support and have no chance basically to maintain positions, and therefore we can see increase in a number of casualties on side of Kiev regime's troops as Russian forces are moving closer and closer to border to liberate entire this borderline strip that is still disputed between the sides. So more than 290 military personnel was neutralized on part of Kiev regime just in previous 24 hours. That's quite a heavy losses if we take in account that it's a tiny area that we are talking about right now. Overall casualties on part of Kiev regime on daily basis is about 1,500, 2,000 if you take an entire line of contact. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reacted on recent provocations of London and Paris. Globalists send their puppets in the governments of a number of NATO member states when they were emphasizing their willingness to send their troops into Kiev-controlled territory to fight basically Russia, to deter Russia or whatever their plans are in their sick mind. And let's go through this news. Let's see what Russian foreign minister has to say. So the United Kingdom and France are obsessed with the idea of sending their troops on the battlefield against Russia. Russian foreign minister Sergei Lavrov said in an interview for the TASS, they began by promising to supply Zelensky with the weapons until total victory, until Russia's strategic defeat on the battlefield. And now, as they start to realize that this is not going to work, they are talking about sending their own armed forces to battlefield. The French and the British are particularly obsessed with their idea, elites of these countries, which is complete true. And we have a quote here, but I hope they have not completely forgotten the lessons of history. Many leaders in Europe, and their number is growing, are beginning to realize how disastrous these attempts might be, and I am sure that voters will do their choice when they go to the polls once again, Lavrov said. Well, maybe he is too optimistic. Majority of public in the West, in Europe, in this particular case, is so brainwashed, by the way, so brainwashed that probably they will applaud deployment of troops of their countries into the battlefield against Russia. I really hope I'm wrong on that, but based on what I observe in open sources, that's my impression, that majority of societies in NATO member states, especially in Europe, are just too brainwashed, too indoctrinated in this hatred of Russia, too misled, so that too influenced by propaganda. So therefore, I don't think they are capable of making right choices. But this is my opinion. Maybe I am wrong and Lavrov is correct in his optimistical take on the public in Europe. But I don't know. I think people, they are too indoctrinated in Russia hate to be able to face the reality or to make good choices. They are just too ill-informed for that. RIA Novosti is reporting that State Department of US reveals topic of talks with Russia in Istanbul that will take place in a few days' time. Tomorrow, actually. So representatives of the Russia and the United States will discuss the work of their embassies at their upcoming talks in Istanbul. The topic of Ukrainian settlement will not be touched upon. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce said at the briefing. On April 10, the US and the Russian delegations will meet for the second time in Istanbul to try to make progress in further stabilizing the work of diplomatic missions. There will be no political or security issues on the agenda. Ukraine is absolutely not on agenda. The talks are focused exclusively on the work of their embassies and are not on the normalization of bilateral relations, which can happen, as we noted, only when there is a peace between Russia and Ukraine, she said. So I guess, you know, I am skeptical about all these talks between Russia and US delegations, because it is so clear that enemies of ours in the leadership of US or in the leadership of any other NATO member state, maybe with the exception of Hungary and Slovakia, are not yet ready to acknowledge objective reality, to face the reality. US leadership is acting like they are on the top of the game, while they are not, isn't it? They are using quite often harsh rhetoric or even ultimatums, which is not going to fly, especially with Russia, right? So therefore, I think this meeting tomorrow between Russian and the US delegations will be just a waste of time, as it was a waste of time every other meeting in the last couple of weeks that had happened, or every other conversation that took place between Russian and US sides. And situation will not change in this regard until forces that are in charge in US will realize that longer they continue play games with Russia, longer they continue to ignore objective reality, longer they refuse to acknowledge guilt of US before Russia and Russian citizens, harder and harder it will be for US to pull out from this conflict. If they will realize that, in that case, things might change and move quite rapidly towards the escalation. All US has to do is acknowledge its guilt before Russia, agree on the concessions, significant concessions, so that Russia will not feel obligated, absolutely obligated to use any opportunity to basically avenge against US in any place of this world. And there will be places where, if relationships between Russia and US will stay this bad as it is right now, then there are going to be many places in this world where Russia will have opportunity to revenge for all the damage that was done to Russia by US from 2014, let's say, at least. Or I will count even 2008, when US authorized or ordered their puppet regime in Georgia to provoke military conflict with Russia. But now we are focused, or world is focused more on the Ukrainian crisis. So if US leadership acknowledges their guilt before Russia, agrees on recessions, on concessions, serious concessions, in that case, yes, relationships may reach working conditions, at least working conditions. Otherwise, I think all these contacts between the sides is just a total waste of time. What they're gonna talk about, really, and why we need an embassy in US, and why they should have an embassy here. I mean, for what? Let militaries and their security services had some backdoor lines of communication, just to make sure that we're not gonna end up in full-scale nuclear exchange, and that's about it. Until US is ready, US leadership is ready to have a serious conversation, why we are wasting time? I don't know. Anyways, let's continue on the very same topic of US involvement in against Russia and US guilt. Nowadays, quite often we are receiving more and more information which highlights how much US was involved in this and still is involved in this proxy war against Russia, and how much harm was done due to US involvement, which means, by the way, how thousands and thousands of Russian citizens were killed as a result of it. And when I'm talking about revenge, you know what I mean, isn't it? And that's why I think only if US agrees on concessions, serious concessions, Russia might say, okay, I mean, they're regretting what they did there. They're agreeing on the concessions. All the families that lost their loved ones will receive additional support. There are additional programs will be in place for their family members of these fallen heroes, additional programs for their troops, militaries that were wounded during this confrontation. So US have to pay for that, just have to, right? Russia is providing militaries with their significant assistance, but more help is always good. More help will be desirable for their families that were harmed by US actions, US anti-Russian actions, right? And nothing to be said about economical damage that was done to Russia by hostility of the US. So concessions have to be very serious, otherwise Russia will have no option but to make sure that revenge will be in place, and the US will bleed out whenever they will get engaged in some conflict outside of their own borders, right? And they are now dreaming about attacking Iran. Well, try. You will find out soon. It's gonna be, if US will go ahead with attack on Iran and did not agree on concession before Russia, I'm 100% convinced, by the way, thousands and thousands of US military is gonna die from Russian weapons and from Russian intelligence, tens of thousands potentially, because blood for blood. Either that, or US has to stop playing games, acknowledge its guilt, apologize, and agree on concessions. This is the only way, by the way. Anything else is just a waste of time. And as I said, there are reports, more and more reports that are highlights level of involvement of US in this war against Russia. And former head of general staff of this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, Zaluzhny, who is serving as a so-called ambassador of Ukraine in UK nowadays, stated that US command center in Wiesbaden, Germany, was a secret weapon in the conflict against Russia. He confirmed basically recent reports in the media, Western media, by the way, that almost all their operations, long-range strikes or otherwise, that were conducted by Kiev regime was orchestrated by the US. US was engaged big time in the planning of these attacks, and who knows how many terrorist attacks were conducted with US involvement. Not just military operations, but terrorist attacks on Russia. And if anybody in Washington thinks that we will just forgive or forget, I mean, they are mistaken. They are mistaken. I mean, they don't know us, right? And there also, one may argue that nowadays, potentially this type of information about US involvement in this war against Russia might be published in the Western propaganda, and maybe Kyiv regime representatives are also acknowledging this, potentially to make it even more harder between Washington and Moscow to find some common ground and achieve some progress in the de-escalation. This is a possibility for sure, because we did not see such articles from the West, at least, right, or the Kyiv regime earlier. It's not a surprise for us Russians. We know that the US was extremely involved in this proxy war from the beginning, but now Western propaganda outlets and public figures from Kiev regime and are acknowledging this, talking about this, and soon probably some European public figures will also start highlighting this point, right? In attempt to, as I said, make it difficult for Washington and Moscow to continue talks. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that the US could pull 10,000 troops from Eastern Europe. This was originally reported by NBC. So the US considering withdrawing up to 10,000 troops from Eastern Europe. NBC News reported on Tuesday, citing sources. The move could come as US President Donald Trump is engaged in the talks with Russia to reach a settlement in the Ukraine conflict and seek to focus more on China. You know what? 10,000 more, 10,000 less, for us it does not make no difference, by the way. We just don't give a damn about it, right? And if US is withdrawing 10,000 troops or has such a plans, probably because of some reorganization that is going on in the Pentagon, and maybe US want to send some message to European NATO member states, but for us, for Russia, as I said, man, 10, 20, 30, 50,000 more US troops or less US troops don't really makes no difference, right? If it comes to full-scale military confrontation, we will obliterate this 10 or 20 or whatever thousand number is of US troops in literally a couple of seconds, because between Russia and US, we're not going to be only with conventional weapons. Nuclear weapons going to be deployed, and that's it. We all understand what will happen then, right? So it is what it is. This is not no one should take this information as an attempt on part of Washington to demonstrate that they are willing to de-escalate with Russia. No, this is nothing. This is literally nothing for Russia. But it might be some sort of message for European NATO member states that, you know what, you don't bark too much, otherwise I will withdraw my troops and you will face, you want to fight Russia, then okay, I am moving out and you are on your own with Russia now and go and fight. Maybe that is the message that Washington wants to send to Europeans, so that they will, European elites will bark a little less. Because they're becoming too noisy nowadays, right? They are nobodies, literally nobodies. They can nothing. They can do nothing. They are disgrace of humanity, scum of humanity, but they are making too much freaking noise. And it is annoying, by the way. RIA Novosti is reporting that US threatens Iran with tough sanctions in absence of a nuclear deal. This was reported by CNBC. So United States will impose tough sanctions on Iran in the absence of nuclear deal. This was stated by US Energy Secretary Chris Wright during his interview with CNBC. And, well, situation between US and Iran is so bad that this statement can be seen as a sort of de-escalation, because earlier statements from Trump himself, from President of US, was that they will bomb. US will start bombing Iran, right? So sanctions, from bombing to sanctions, that's a de-escalation, I will say, right? But yet again, if US will go ahead with their strikes on Iran, if US will start a war against Iran, that's going to be a grave mistake on part of United States. And as I said yesterday, maybe even beginning of the end of US as a state, as we know it, at least, right? So they should think big time about taking such steps. RT is also reporting that Trump slumps proud China with 104% tariffs. United States has hiked tariffs on all Chinese imports to staggering 104%, escalating the ongoing trade conflict and wiping out another 1.5 trillion from US stock markets. On Tuesday, China had originally been set to face 34% tariffs increase on Wednesday as a part of President Donald Trump's so-called reciprocal measures, targeting virtually all US trade partners. However, after Beijing responded with its own 34% duty on US goods. Then US leadership, US president raised their blanket tariff to a total of 104%, and it is in force now. According to reports, these tariffs already are enforced. We know that there was a 54% overall volume of tariffs on China, and then US president had 50% more day before yesterday, that was, I believe, and the overall number now is 104%. Of course, China will react in the same way, and it's going to be big hit on US economy and US companies, because I don't think it is even theoretically possible at this point to slow down inflation in US after such decisions, and US companies gonna have huge losses, especially ones that do business in China or have some business in China, not just exporting stuff but also producing stuff there. So this trade war with China, tariff war with China, may end up being a huge mistake on part of US, but we will find out. Meanwhile, dear friends, oil price is failing because economists or financial institutions are afraid that world economy gonna end in recession. US economy and world economy gonna follow. And on fears of that, and also due to instability on the markets, oil prices is failing, and some enemies of Russia are celebrating, because they are so stupid and so uneducated that they think Russia is really heavily dependent on oil and oil prices, which is not the true, by the way, right? But I give you news. So in Russian budget, by the way, price on oil was accounted for about $60, and currently Russian oil Urals is trading for 52.76, so it's $7 lower than budget forecast, right? But and Russia is losing some money now when price is this low on oil, right? But one should keep in mind that Russian income is only accounts, energy sector only accounts for some 30% of Russian income, right? It's not like 80 or 90% or 100%, only like 30% of income, about that, right? And also one should keep in mind that Russia, if necessary, Russia always can use its golden and currency reserves, which is above 600 billion, right? And also there is National Wealth Fund, which has also 150 billion or something reserves. So total reserves of Russia currently is about 800 billion. So this is a quite good enough safety cushion to make sure that the economy will continue to do okay, and Russian budget deficit will be dealt with effectively. And also one should keep in mind that Russian central bank economical bloc may pull off some restrictions to weaken the ruble, because now I think ruble is strengthening for last month or two due to some decisions that were made by central bank, but these decisions may be overlooked, and in that case Russian ruble will start get weaker again. It might reach 100, 110, 120 rubles potentially, and of course that will increase risks of inflation undoubtedly. But same time, there are some instruments to deal with inflation too, and this weaker ruble will allow Russia to receive more money, right? When exchange will be made from let's say dollars or foreign currencies to a ruble, then budget will receive more rubles. Am I explaining correctly? So there is plenty of tools in hands of Russian financial bloc, central bank, to deal with this situation, and the enemies of Russia are celebrating for no reason at all. They should take care of themselves all around Europe and North America. RT is reporting that Trump, meanwhile, is going wild, by the way, really wild. And this is not at all exaggeration, because he's delivering speeches now in a language that are definitely inappropriate for the president or for the public figure, by the way, official. I mean, I'll tell you what I mean. So President Donald Trump has claimed that dozens of countries are scrambling to negotiate trade deal with the United States following his sweeping new tariffs, boosting that foreign leaders are begging for exemptions to avoid the full impact of their levies. Speaking at the National Republican Congressional Committee dinner on a Tuesday night, Trump said his administration is doing very well in early negotiations with the countries already hit with the baseline 10% tariffs last week, and dozens more facing even steeper duties starting Wednesday. I am telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. Trump said they are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. This is quote from Trump, by the way. I mean, this is too bad, man. Is he a freaking teenager that don't know yet how to speak properly? And loves to act tough because it might look cool or something in certain communities. What a disgrace, man. What a disgrace. What the hell is going on there? President is speaking with this language. Wow. And what about countries that he is insulting? I don't know, man. Is this normal in US to act this way? Is a part of American culture to be this disrespectful and this vulgar? I don't know, man. This is wrong in so many levels, and I really hope all these countries that were insulted by Trump will say, you know what, we had enough of you, and I hope they will all cut all the ties with US, including diplomatic ties, man. US needs to teach the lesson, seems like, because take a look at this, man. This is total disrespect for hundreds of millions of people, right? Billions of people, actually. And from where this sick attitude is coming from? What is going on there? Unbelievable, man. And that's why I think, by the way, when they have such attitude, when they are clearly inadequate, right? When they are out of touch with reality, why on earth Russia should spend any time to maintain any level of contact with these morons, right? That are in charge of US. I mean, few backdoor lines of communication between defense ministries and their secret services will be enough to make sure that by human error or some other reasons, we would not end up in a full-scale nuclear exchange, and that's it. Currently, I see no reason to have any contacts with the US leadership beyond that, because there is no point to talk to these morons, by the way. I mean, just take a look at this. Me personally, I would not even talk to Trump because it's just too insulting to my intelligence. You know, I don't know how to talk to morons, by the way. Maybe to take a bait and smash their freaking heads. That's the only language they understand, right? Not the intelligent conversation. Anyways, let's continue, man. It's US is becoming some I don't know, man, some complete disaster, really. I didn't expect the situation will get this bad, but probably very few did. You know, what is going on, man? What the hell? And meanwhile, Trump is not only one that talks or acts this tough and disrespectful. Take a look at the head of Pentagon, by the way, Pat Hexet. He is issuing some ultimatums to China from Panama, by the way. So the US has vowed to take back the Panama Canal from Chinese influence and has launched a series of military deployments and the joint exercises with Panama to reinforce that commitment, according to Defense Secretary Pat Hegseth. Pentagon chief attended the inauguration of the new U.S. finance dock at the Vaso Nunes de Balboa naval base on Tuesday, touting the facility as a symbol of the shared commitments to the channel's security following U.S. President Donald Trump's repeated threats to reclaim the key waterway. China did not build this channel. China does not operate this channel. And China will not weaponize this channel, Hegseth said in his speech. Together, we will take back the Panama Channel from China's influence, and we will do this along with other capable, like-minded allies and partners. I mean, Pat Hegseth is also a moron, obviously. I mean, he's truly uneducated. Truly uneducated because I guess he don't really understand what he's talking about, because in one sentence, he's saying that China did not build this channel, China does not operate this channel, and China will not weaponize this channel. And on the other hand, in the next very sentence, he's saying that together with whomever, US will take back the Panama Channel from China's influence. So if China does not operate this channel, what are you talking about? I mean, how are you going to take back the channel from China that is not in Chinese hands? What the hell? Or you are lying in your first sentence that China did not operate and China didn't do this and that. Anyways, it's a mess, by the way. I mean, to comment seriously statements of US officials is just also a waste of time. But once again, I mean, demonstration with whom, with what kind of morons world is dealing nowadays, right? It is what it is, man. And I don't think these people are capable of facing the reality. They are too delusional for that, right? When Pentagon's chief is talking to major economical and military superpower with their language of ultimatums, that already demonstrates that he is just out of touch with reality, because this is not normal. Anyways, let's continue, and I will end this update, by the way, on this news that Brazil confirms that President Lula da Silva will visit Moscow on May 9th during the celebration of a great victory in a great patriotic war. And it's not just Brazil's president, but also, I believe, Chinese leader Xi Jinping will visit Moscow for 9th of May. Also, leader of India, Modi, Prime Minister of India, Modi, leaders of all the other BRICS member states, quite sure, many leaders from republics of former Soviet Union and from African nations. It's gonna be huge celebration, by the way. Not just for us. We always celebrate this great day, great victory, but it will be celebration for entire this world, right? Because it was, and it should be always celebration for this world that we have defeated this evil force that Nazi Germany was, right? And Nazi. Unfortunately, ideology may still exist, but at least we defeated the main force that was driving this ideology, Nazi Germany. Our ancestors, our generation of our grandfathers, of course. And dear friends, that's been said, I will end this update on that. Hopefully you will find it informative and interesting, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. And as I already said, if you like my work and if you want to support, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.